Good morning, everybody. I'm Tarun, your host for today. IoT, as we all know, is slowly taking over all our lives and making it more convenient and efficient. So with the extraordinary 5G capabilities, we're going to take a huge, exciting leap into the innovation and technology. So here at IET, we have a workshop as a part of our quantum series, IoT leveraging in 5G. We have with us Raj B R sir, who is going to enlighten us with his knowledge and expertise in this very domain. Raj B R sir is the Global Practice Director at 5G IoT and Smart Cities at Wipro Limited. We are very delighted to have you with us, sir. Please start your presentation, sir.
Thank you, Tarun, and thank you, entire team, for inviting me for this exciting session. I am very happy to be part of your today's workshop to present Internet of Things leveraging 5G. So I hope all of you can hear me. Little bit about me. I have almost 30 years of exposure to the industry, starting my career during 1990s and then going through different areas in the IT sector. So currently I am holding the position of a practice director for developing IoT in the 5G era. Okay, so especially on the 5G domain areas. So what I would like to present today is about not exactly the core technical part of IoT and 5G or smart cities. I would just talk to you about what industry is looking for and what currently companies like Wipro is working on to deliver such requirements in the industry, so that you will get a complete perception of what you can look forward when you come out of your academic pursuits, right? So that is what I wanted to give you. It's like a bridging between the industry and academia. So that's what I wanted to. And my role in my company is like an innovation type of role where I have to talk to the customers, understand their requirements, and bring that ideation to the customer, and then take it back to my technical team and tell them that, yeah, this is what is required for the customer, right? So this is exactly what I do, and that's why I am able to bring you the latest what the industry demands are, right? So I will cover something about in starting about IoT. Then I will talk about IoT in the 5G era, and then I will talk a little bit about smart cities. So I was head of the smart cities program in India for some time. About 4 years I was heading in Wipro smart cities for India. So I have some good exposure, and now I have a global experience also, right? So let us start. Before starting on any other uh, details about IoT, I should actually give you an input of where IoT stands, okay, and what are the other related things which is being used in the industry today. Okay, the highest visibility is, of course, one is IoT. Then the IoT in 5G era, that is when 5G adoption happens, how the IoT will change. Immersive experience, that's also part of Internet of Things, that is like AR, VR, etc. Digital twin is another thing. And then edge computing. Edge computing and 5G goes hand in hand, right? So that is also very important. Then you have the cloud adoption. Cloud, edge, or the fog is a combination which will be required, or which will be uh, uh, working as a joint proposition in most of these cases. Then finally is AI or ML. So that is what the buzzwords today adopted in the industry today. So I have a chart here which talks about IoT spending, probably in billions, in which sector. So manufacturing is supposed to be the largest consumer for IoT in the coming days, right? Then comes the consumer IoT, transportation, utilities, that, like that. So this is a picture which you should know that industry is looking forward for Internet of Things and all other technology adoptions today. 2 years back, it was slightly different. 2 years back, the uh, industry adoption of IoT was in a very low pace. Okay, so people used to question. So I will tell you the reason also when I go forward in the slides. So they used to question, why should we go for IoT? We are having automation, we are having other things. Why should we go for IoT? Today, after this pandemic scene, the world is actually looking forward for IoT and 5G adoption in a faster pace, so that in any eventuality things will not come to a standstill. That's a reason which is gaining popularity. Now the key trends I have told you, one is digital twin, which has got a excellent or futuristic opportunities for digital twin, and edge and fog computing, because cloud has to be augmented along with edge and fog computing. Then we have immersive experience. So that is AR, VR, or MR based experience. And the backbone. The backbone will be 5G, right? 5G is the future for wireless communication, right? So I'm not saying that wired communication will stop. Wired communications will still be there, because 5G needs OFC, optical fiber based communication also, right? So this is the what you can look forward as key trends which is catching up. Now, the journey of IoT happens when you start sensing or put sensors in the field. It can be anywhere, right? So you also, many of you would have done a lot of lab exercises or some small proof of concepts implementation in your campus or somewhere else also. Sensor is the key part of it. You sense, right? Then you connect. So it can be any type of connection, wireless connections, wired connections, etc. Then capture those data, and you need to store those data, whether it is in the edge or in the cloud. You need to store in the data. You might have heard of data lake, etc. So when it comes to large areas of deployment, you go for a data lake kind of environment, right? So you need to store data. Then you need to analyze the data, whether it is a predictive analytics or prescriptive analytics, etc. So analyze those data, transform those data into a visualization layer where the people should be able to visualize. It depends on the stakeholder. So the top management may not want to visualize each and every functions. Okay, the top management will visualize only certain things which is required. So that visualization part is very important, and that visualization also should be very pleasing. So you have several tools today to actually make such visualizations possible. Either it could be graphical visualization, different types of charts, etc. It's all built into most of those IoT applications, right? Now, the journey. How does the journey happen? In IoT journey, there are two legs or two portions to it. Okay, one is technology driven, second one is business driven, right? Most importantly, I would say that technology driven IoT is not much of a challenge, because many of these technical people in the industry knows that we have to do this and it is important. But it means to convincing the business is the most important part of it, right? When you go to the customer and customer will ask you questions, how do I monetize this, or what is my ROI, return on investment, when I do all these investments. So we have seen in the industry, majority of the decision making for IoT used to happen with business. Okay, and business says yes, go for it, then the technical people will not have any issues. So convincing business, you need to make the story, IoT journey story. You have to make, you have to tell them that if you do this, what is your expected outcomes. It could be like efficiency of operations, or it could be like you can see the real time data, your manufacturing data, you can see real time your outputs of the manufacturing, when it can come, estimated time, all that you can give inputs to the marketing team, right? So this is the kind of thing which they want. Like then predictive analysis of that, if the supply chain it breaks, okay, and what can be the impact for their output. So these kind of analysis, everything can be one of those business driven IoT journey can bring in, right? So that is very important. So business models can be created. For example, you need to know that how do I enhance the business time, delivery at the right time, how do I make sure that it happens, or manufacturing, immediate, you don't have to stock the materials. So you get the materials when it's time for manufacturing. So this all will turn into a business driven IoT journey. This is very important for you to understand, right? Now, what all things you connect? So you connect anything. Okay, anything and everything you can connect. When I say anything and everything, I'm just taking some examples here to showcase to you. But you can actually do IoT in a soap dispenser. We have implemented as small as that. Plus, you can have like large equipments like JCBs. We have done in JCBs, right? So there, entire information about JCB, several parameters will be taken, and it goes to the dealer or the service provider. So when a JCB is deployed in a construction site, they know, they can actually look at a predictive analysis and say whether it requires repair in the next couple of days. So you know that, a JCB, if it stops, entire work can get stopped. So if it is advanced this thing level, if you know that, okay, this requires certain repairs, or it can be predicted that in another couple of days it will require certain repair. So that advanced notification is actually brought by IoT. So this helps a lot. So this is how I said, it's a business proposition which brings the value to IoT for the customer. So anything, including medical devices, including motors, including oil pipelines, any such things, you can have IoT. A simple bulb in your house can be IoT enabled. You should all try. Today, home automation is very simple. So if you are tech savvy, you can actually automate your home in a couple of ways, right? Smart lighting, anyway, it is available. You can hook on many things and then view everything through your mobile application from a distant place. So home automation is a very big area where IoT will be helping them, right? So these are things which require. I will show something little about IoT framework. How does it look like? How does it start from the physical layer to the top layers of analytics, right? This is how it looks like. You have the physical layer, like, you have the vehicles, you have the medical equipment, you have the JCBs, you have these homes, all that is all physical layer. You have the sensors associated with it. Could be a temperature sensor, humidity sensor, it could be a camera, it could be a smart meter, it could be any such devices attached to your appropriately attached to your physical layer. And then it senses data and sends it over a network. That is where it is crucial, right? What kind of network? So earlier, actually, even today, there are different types of sensors. Take a example of home, because you are aware of home automations and all. In a home, you might have a Wi-Fi device, or you can connect most of the things through your home Wi-Fi, right? But all the sensors doesn't work on Wi-Fi. You know, yeah, some of these work on a BLE based connectivity. Some works on a narrow band NB-IoT, or in a LoRa kind of thing, so sub gigahertz kind of bandwidths. So different types of communication happens through these devices. So when you say that, you want Wi-Fi to be enabled for all the devices, it is very difficult to do that, right? That is where you want to have a universal connectivity or communication area to be explored, a wireless communication. That's why 5G, with its three segments or slices of 5G, is very important. 5G comes with three slices, as you might have studied, or you can actually get information from Google. A lot of information is available. It gives sub gigahertz. It's called the lowest slice, or the narrow band slice. The mid band slice, like, Wi-Fi, you have a range in 5 gigahertz to 6 gigahertz kind of a range, which can be used for your communications, or for cameras or any such communications. And you have the highest slice of it, 30 gigahertz plus up to 60 gigahertz you can have the slice. Of course it comes with certain problems, it needs to be a point to point communication or a line of sight communication, etc. So there are difficulties in that. So but once it is fully ready, 5G will cater to all these requirements, right, in a single wireless communication infrastructure. That is why 5G is the most suitable wireless communication for IoT. I'm purposely saying wireless communication because 5G also require wired connectivity. Okay, so wired connectivity cannot be ignored while you do wireless at the last mile, but the further communications or further connectivity is generally on a OFC network, optical fiber network. Now, then the data which is connected over the protocols like MQTT, COAP, MQP, all this probably you would have studied in your syllabus as part of it. So communication protocols are there. That's very important in IoT to understand that. Why? Because if you want to connect things using IoT, you need to know what's the kind of communication protocol the existing systems can connect with, right? For example, you go to a connection for a smart energy, right? You go to a particular energy or the smart metering place and want to just plug in or connect, it will not connect, right? It might work in the traditional protocol like Modbus or BACnet kind of a protocols. So either you have to convert that to bring it to the IP network and then connect over it. Okay, or your application should have a plugin for straight away connecting the Modbus and the backnets of the world, right? So there are limitations for IoT platforms. Many IoT platforms doesn't have the facility to connect directly to the existing infrastructure. Okay, so generally what we see, most of the IoT platforms will have 30 plus communication protocols associated with it. Wipro has got its own IoT platform called Wipro Smart I Connect, which has got 100 plus communication protocols built into it. So it is very easy. It's like, plug and play kind of thing, except for the 20-25% of the customization which needs to be done. That is on the top layer. Customization of that. So what the customer is looking for, that comes in the top layer. The platform does its work, does data gather, it understands what the data is, remove the unwanted data, clean it and store the data, and then finally it has to represent. That representation happens based on what is exactly the stakeholder wants to see. Okay, the industry leaders or the people different levels of leadership wants to see. So accordingly we'll have to customize it. Then the next part is actually every IoT platform need to connect with the existing systems like billing systems or ERP systems like SAP. You may have to link with that. You might have a CRM system existing, you will have to link. So that is why we do with API sharing. So we will ask any of these people to share APIs, the data what is required for us. Okay, through an API we'll share, and that data is also published or is looked into in this IoT platform so that we can deliver. So that's the flexibility. So IoT platforms generally work as a orchestration layer also, get all this information and then turn it into information and display it. So this is how it works, right? A simple example, right? This is something which you all would have done as a lab experiment, or definitely you might be doing it in the due course of your training. Now, water sensors. It can be the quality of water. It can be the volumetric things of water. It can be in a lake or a pond or even a tank. Okay, you sense water using certain instruments, right? So that once the water is sensed for quality or levels or anything, it communicate over a particular communication. It can be a Wi-Fi. It can be a LoRa network. It can be narrowband IoT network. Okay, through a cloud platform, cloud-based platform, or your data center where your application is hosted. Very simple example. That's what I wanted to give you. Okay, this is IoT-driven data gathering. Okay, we used to call about if it was about 10 years back, we would have called it as automation. Okay, so IoT is nothing but what we used to do automation. It is renamed added certain IT part into it. Okay, and then now we visualize it as IoT. Right. Now, this is a very simple example I am giving you, but when you do it, you will know what all challenges you want to face it. It depends on the place you want to monitor. It depends on the data rate at which you want to send the information. All depends on that, right? Now, when you do this in any IoT scenario, most of the customers will look at ROI. Okay, ROI in terms of number of months or years kind of thing. So if I invest X amount of money today, how do I recover that money, whether it is a direct monetization of it or an indirect monetization of it? How IoT can help? This is what they will ask. So solutions, can they save certain costs? Can actually they um, uh, make enable us for a better decision making? Okay, it can be any such thing. Enhance customer acquisition. Okay, these are all IoT's end goals, okay, which will help the implementation, the customer to come up with. Right. Now, when you say, I am giving you an example of benefits of smart water, right? You say that reduce consumption, 10% reduced. That's a good thing. That actually leads our data to the reduction of carbon footprint, right? So reduce leakages, seepages, etc. Okay, and the billing. Okay, the cost of this thing is reduced, right? So now most of the places, the problem for water supply is non-revenue water. NRW they call it as. For example, I live in a city in Bangalore. Okay, so what they get, the revenue is only 40 to 50% of what water is pumped. The water is taken from a very far away place, 250 kilometers away. Bangalore city gets water from the dam near Mysore. So almost 250 kilometers away it comes, water flows here. But during the entire process, we lose almost 40 to 50% of water. Okay, it's not accounted. So whether it is leakage in between or it is unbilled things like that. So IoT actually can plug all these things and say exactly where the problem is. Okay, so that NRW percentage, non-revenue water percentage, can shrink, and then they can actually achieve some to close to about 5% kind of a difference. That is what Singapore does. Singapore is actually running at an NRW of just 5% compared to a Bangalore city of 40%, 45% of that. Right. This is how IoT helps. Now, return of investment depends on the project size. Okay, whether project is very large or small. I am showing you some of those large implementation, like in a fleet, how do you implement, especially fleets which carry, let us say, vaccination today. It's very important today. So the vaccines carrying trucks, how do you monitor the temperature? How do you monitor the other features? If the truck is stuck in some places, how do you get help? And you can't actually run it if the fuel is low. You need to ensure that the fuel is filled. So how do you manage the entire fleet? And if it is carrying probably a very costly item, like to say it is gold or something like that, it's carrying, so security is most important thing. So can you monitor the entire thing? Can you have digital locks in the trucks where only the digital key is transferred from the source and the where it is going destination, only they can open? In between, if somebody tries to open it, there is an alarm or alert generated and camera is switched on and they can see who does it. So there are several requirements, such requirements coming from many people, like e-commerce giants, so like Flipkarts or the Amazons of the world. They would like to implement these kind of solutions because um, uh, pilferage is one of those major things which costs a lot for them, whether it is in their warehouse, during transit, any places. And some of these places, temperature monitoring, like if you are monitoring, let us say, milk supply. Okay, it is very important that the milk is kept in a particular temperature when it reaches from the farm. It's taken from the farm to the processing centers. So monitoring such things is very important. So it is huge in investment, as well as it is a huge deployment of IoT, right? Similar way, I am taking another example of data centers, large data centers. Like we have implemented on the one of the large implementation in India. Data center we have done is in UIDA, Aadhaar card, these things, right? there are thousands of racks which are there and thousands of servers. Okay, so how do you monitor all this? So there is something called data center infrastructure monitoring. Today it is IoT driven data center infrastructure monitoring, DCIM it is called, right? So it is now today powered by IoT. So you can know the power, cooling, monitoring of all the aspects, even application level monitoring, all the racks, the movements. You change one server to another rack, all that change movements, everything, including the access control, because security is most important in such infrastructures. So you have the access control. All this is being monitored today using IoT driven data center infrastructure monitoring systems, right? This is another example what you can see. And then how do you do it in airports? So airports also will require IoT driven. So one of those cases which I was mentioning earlier, actually entire airport they want to actually implement uh, the augment the automation what existing they have. So they want to add on to that with IoT. Why? Because most of the systems, for example, I will say you all might know there is a passenger boarding bridge. Okay, PBB it is called. Passenger boarding bridge has got some few parameters, okay, to be monitored regularly. Okay, so normally what happens is they go and monitor it physically there, and there might be some small station where they might be able to visualize it. And in this process of airport implementation, there might be different companies implementing it. So passenger boarding bridges by X company will be probably they might have 20 such things from X company, and the next another 20 will be from another company. So all these companies will give different applications. So it is important to link all these applications. That's a challenge what we will have, and IoT can do that, right? IoT can actually give if they have, let us say, 80 to 100 boarding bridges, you can have a single visualization of all the boarding bridges parameters. So during the pandemic stage, they wanted actually some of the people were working from home and monitor it. They wanted to monitor from home itself. They don't want physically to go to the airports and see what the performance is like. So they can sit anywhere and they can actually visualize it, right? And they can if there is a problem, they can immediately call the service guy and then go and attend it. So alerts mechanisms, so many things in airports. So I am showing some of those things which can be integrated in airport. So this is one of those areas. And the last but not the least is the smart cities. It's a very large implementation. Millions of sensors will be there if you implement IoT in smart cities. Okay, that is the big challenge. So where do you implement? It can be for traffic management. It can be for street light management. You might be wondering, in a city, how many street lights are there? So according to the information, it's available, it could be somewhere around 30 lakh street lights in a city like Chennai or Bangalore, right? So huge street light deployments. A city like New York has got more than 80 lakh street lights, right? So how do you automate it? And this automation actually brings cost savings, right? So energy savings. So how do you do energy saving in a street light automation? You can actually dim your street lights to maybe a 70% level or below that 50% level during some point in the night where some places it may not be required that full brightness it should work, right? Now that by changing the LED bulbs from sodium vapor to LED migration, you get almost 80% savings or 70% savings energy. It's a huge energy saving, right? But you can add on another 15 to 20% savings by using IoT. So that means close to about 90% saving from the current one you can achieve. Okay, by using IoT and by using certain decisions that you will cut down on the requirement of full bright lighting in certain places like that. So that is actually will lead to the city's carbon footprint reduction, right? So these are all things you have. The waste management is a big thing which every city is looking for. They want to know how waste is managed. For example, in Australia, there is a huge requirement which we were working. Abu Dhabi city, they are looking for IoTification in the waste management, right? So there are several cities. They all have something in silos. Okay, but the problem is nobody is having a full view of the waste management process, waste collection, waste segregation, and waste disposal systems, or generation of revenue out of it, right? So these things, full view is not available. So we are doing experimentations in different parts of the city. One of the experimentation, we are doing it in electronic city itself. The authority is doing end-to-end waste management, and there is a dashboard to see how the waste monetization happens or waste processing happens from collection. That is, we weigh at the collection point. So the wet waste and the solid waste, other recyclable waste, we check that at the starting point itself, whether it is segregated or not. If it is not segregated, we will put a fine and then ask them to segregate. Those kind of things. Segregation is very important at the starting point, right? Then the processing happens. It is collection waste, and then say sorting it out in a large facility, and then it goes for different locations for processing or recycling. So large things, so there are many such things possible in a city, right? So smart city is one of the major areas where IoT implementation will happen. So you can see some of these things now. So what I am showcasing it in the vertical areas, we call it as vertical markets, where IoT is used. Smart cities, as I said, it is one of those major areas. Smart campuses, airports and seaports. Then oil and gas, whether it is offshore drilling or the midstream, we call it as the midstream and the lower streams of that, every end to end, actually, the upstream, midstream, and the processing units, or the refineries which is there, and the distribution network, everywhere IoTification can happen, right? Healthcare is another major area, so which is um, uh, now actually it is being a lot of IoT implementation has happened recently, and it is picking up momentum in healthcare systems, right? Agriculture. So agriculture was lagging a lot in IoT. It was a very cold start, but even now there are a lot of interest from the large plants like Cargill kind of American companies. They want to know whether the seeds they give, how the process happening. So agriculture is interesting market today. Manufacturing is traditionally they have automation, but IoTification is something which they are also looking at. Logistics and fleets, of course, they will be one of the implementers, but may not be in a very large scale like manufacturing, but definitely they it makes sense for them to implement IoT. So these are some of those market areas where IoT will be implemented in large scales. Now, while we talk about IoT implementation, as I said earlier, the most important aspect is communication. Okay, there are difficulties in implementing IoT in many places because the communication infrastructure is not adequate enough. For example, in an airport, the most difficult part of implementing IoT is the communication, right? So airport will have limitations in certain communication, wireless communication. They may not allow certain wireless communications in the air side of it. You know that airport has got three areas: the land side, the terminal, and the air side. Okay, air side we will have difficulties in certain things, right? You can't actually use certain frequencies. You need to get permissions from the authorities. All that difficulties are there, but wired communication is allowed. Okay, so in terminals there is no problem. You can use wired and wireless communication both. In land side also there is no issue. So in airports implementation, if you can give a unified communication facility which can work in the narrow band, in the mid band, and the higher bands, it will be very, very helpful to implement IoT seamlessly, integrate devices and machines into a single network. So there are several other places like city also. It's the same thing in smart cities, right? So wireless communication in the using 5G is going to be a changing factor in the IoTification, or that's why I have termed it as IoT in the 5G era is going to be critical. Now, look at how 5G helps. Okay, simple these things you can definitely study a little more in details in your communication papers. Now, it is about actually it is about penetration. Okay, When you have low band, that is sub gigahertz band, the penetration is very high. Right? So your frequency reduces, your penetration capability increases. You might have definitely studied that theory, right? So that is a principle what we adopt. Low band, that is NB-IoT, we call it as, or the sub gigahertz slice of 5G network, can penetrate walls, can penetrate and reach different equipment. So that frequency band is used for communication for smart street lighting or smart metering, etc. Okay, that's how it is used. The mid band is used generally for data streaming, like your TV, IPTV connects to the entire 5G network. Through 5G network can connect to the content which is being delivered, right? So now you have satellite communication, satellite TV, or wired connection coming to you. Tomorrow it will be completely on IPTV and 5G driven, right? So communication infrastructure or media, this thing is a very important aspect of it, right? Now there are other facilities, like in hospitals. How do they use that communication? In virtual reality mode, how do we use that? So these are all going to be in leaps and bounds. The use cases will come when you have a 5G network into it, right? Now I'll just give you a simple example of 4G and 5G, the transformation what it will bring, right? Now we call it as latency is one of the major things what people think that 5G can bridge that. Today in 4G, the best of best latency can be 40 milliseconds, right? Below that you won't get it. In all practical purposes, it could be close to about a second, right? But 5G theoretically, I would say theoretically, it says that the latency will be 1 millisecond, the round trip latency. That is, from your computer, a data, or from your device, a data goes to the cloud and comes back. Okay, that answer comes back to you within 1 millisecond. Okay, not exactly to the cloud, because there are a lot of steps in between. So I can say that it is an edge compute device, okay, which is closer to the thing. For example, I will take a example of a robotic these things. I have some example in the coming slides. A robotic arms working in a, let us say, in a plant where two robotic arms doing welding work. One has to do the first step and the second has to do the second step. Today it is completely wired, and in this process, while it is moving very frequently, there can be small snags which can happen during wiring. Okay, so was a requirement in these manufacturing world that can it communicate over a wireless communication, right? But none of the wireless communication like Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 today we call it as, none of these can actually do that. But 5G can do that, because its communication can theoretically be less than 1 milliseconds, or practically they say less than 4 milliseconds, right? So that is much better than the current communication. So from 4G to 5G, that difference is very important. Data density, okay, it can per square kilometers, how many devices can be there. In 4G, your mobile phones, there is a particular problem in how many devices. Now, so in 4G, 100,000 devices is what they say, but in 5G, you can have 1 million devices per square kilometers. That is a device density, 10 times more than the existing ones. Then support of, for example, if you are traveling in a high speed train, like, bullet train, handshaking between two towers takes time. So if you are on a call or a video call or something, you will have interruptions, because while the train moves at a high speed, your tower to tower handover which happens can make a delay in your communication. In 4G, the best of best is you can do seamless this thing if the vehicle travels at 100 kilometers per hour. If it is more than that, it is difficult. But in 5G deployment, it is 500 kilometers per hour. So you are sitting in a bullet train also. If you are making a video call, you will not feel any difference. So that's how it is. So there are major other things, network availability, coverage, all that, is part of it. So 5G actually delivers much better connectivity in terms of latency, in terms of device density, in terms of coverage, all that. That is why it is taking a very important aspect in the IoT. Right. My next slide is about, sorry. Now, the next slide is about opportunities. So 5G brings IoT, bridge certain gaps in today's communication, and 5G IoT we call it as 5G IoT actually can do human to human, human to machine, and machine to machine communications. It has got the three areas of communication, like enhanced mobile broadband. That's for your usage of your mobile and other things. You have machine type, massive machine type communication. That's what I said, narrowband communication, which can be like connecting all the smart meters in a community or smart meters in the city. You have low latency applications, like in a robotic surgery or any remote applications where latency is very important. So these are certain applications which will need. So I have just you can see some of those areas. Remote surgery is there, public safety is there, health monitoring is there. Okay. Vehicle to infrastructure, that's a very important aspect. Today's world is becoming autonomous vehicles. So autonomous vehicles, how does it communicate with the normal vehicles? How does it understand? So is it possible that a Tesla can run in a road like in Indian road? Is it possible a complete autonomous vehicle can run along with a manual driven vehicle? So a lot of questions. It is not an easy task to do that, right? You might be doing some technical work in or experimentations in these directions, and this is the future of it. Now, how does it work? So this will give you a picture of how a IoT, 5G IoT, and edge work together. Because I said 5G IoT or IoT will need 5G and edge. 5G works along with it because low latency communication need to be need to have a edge compute device. No, it cannot actually wait for the cloud to respond. So multi-access edge, MEC is called. So the near edge and the far edge kind of a combinations will be there depending on that. It could be the network edge of a network service provider or internet service provider, and the edge within the factory premise or within the enterprise premise. So that is another edge. So the near edge and far edge concept is there. Now, devices getting connected over a private 5G. So there are two types of 5G. It can be a private 5G or a public 5G, right? So private 5G is in some places, like you have dedicated frequencies allotted for private 5G. In US it is available, in some parts of Europe are available, like Germany they allow that private 5G. So that is also available to you, right? So private 5G is there, public 5G. Public 5G is provided by the network communication providers. They themselves can actually provide a private 5G also for you. For example, the entire campus of yours can be on a private 5G, right? It need not be a public 5G. But a service provider can give you both. If you ask a service provider in your region, please provide a private 5G, I want to use all your computing facilities, everything running on a private 5G, it can happen. So that is possible to do that. So enterprise 5G level that can be given, and it can connect to the public 5G as well. So here I am showcasing some of those Intel based systems which is there in the multi-access edge compute. That is the edge platform which is used. You can see OpenVINO, OpenCV, all that being used for the applications which is required. It could be a visualization application, or we call it as visual intelligence based applications at the edge. So the for example, a camera sees an anomaly. Okay, it is not actually going to the cloud to determine that. It actually go to the edge device, and it analyzes at the edge itself. It doesn't go to the cloud today, right? So 5G and edge will work together in many areas. Now, how do I leverage 5G? In many areas, it is there mission critical services and massive IoT services, fixed broadbands and mobile broadbands, etc. in a city area, which is where 5G will give value to you, right? Police forces or the first responders, what we call it as, like fire services or ambulance services. So all these people can use 5G very effectively for delivering systems, which is probably difficult in today's environment or not possible at all because of the lack of proper communication infrastructure, right? So these are the areas where we deploy. Okay, this is another one which transform field services with AR. Now I said, AR or the augmented reality kind of things, or extended reality services is very important today. Now, how do a remote expert help a person who is at the site through a AR based visualization, help him to rectify it? For example, he may not be the person at the site may not be an expert, but a remote expert can, okay, visualize what is happening there using the headgear like realware. There are a lot of things available, like so through that he can actually communicate, he can actually visualize it, and then the person who is at the service center or service site also can actually get instructions clearly, or if he wants to see the manual, you can see the manual, you can browse the manual, all that facilities. Either it is AR based, that is augmented reality based, or virtual reality based. So this will actually be very beneficial. It's a business case which will be very beneficial for the customer. We say, like, you have 20 to 25% reduction in workforce. It's a very important aspect in a business, right? Employee of the productivity will increase by 40%. It's a business aspect of it. It is not just technology aspect of it. So decision making happens at the, I said, in the business layer, where they say, yeah, there is a efficiency increase by 50%. Why not implement it? And then we work on the ROI, that, if you implement it, it will be good for the organization, right? Some couple of examples I will tell you which is being implemented, which is running, not by us, but generally it is implemented. It's external reference cases, like, uh, 5G factory, medical equipment manufacturer, how they have used for autonomous mobile robots, okay, for in a factory for manufacturing medical equipment. That's one of those things. And they have seen the value on the high speed, capacity, low latency, ability to connect multiple devices, etc., as one of those areas where it can be utilized. Another one is a large white good manufacturer. Okay, so I don't want to name the this thing now. So it actually uses the delivery using robotic. This is completely on a 5G factory, right? So it uses 5G, private 5G within that factory, and use this for communication between the vehicles, which is delivering items within that. Third one, which is very important, you can just Google it out. Factory 56 is Daimler Benz factory in Germany. It uses completely 5G in their communications. It's a new infrastructure which was implemented, I think, about 1.5 years back, and I think they connected with one of these service providers or the equipment provider and implemented this 5G. It's a very famous case study which is there. You can just Google Factory 56, you will get that information. These are some of those areas where already 5G is implemented in the private space. Now, without talking about smart cities, I cannot end this presentation. So I will talk little about IoT and smart cities, right? What does IoT do for smart cities? So IoT can give a complete digital overlay of things, connect with organizations and people. This is primarily what IoT will do, right? Connect every street element. For example, we call it as street furnitures. Okay, so there is something which I run called intelligent intersections today. That's catching up in the world. Anything and everything near the intersection is connected over IoT and connected to a command control center. Like, you have traffic lights, you have a pedestrian crossing, we have like violation detections, we have other things which is very important, and it has to be very responsive, and we need to have edge device at that location, particular this thing, because so many things are getting connected. In a small four-way junction, you will have, if you want to do something like this, you need to have at least 20 to 25 cameras, okay, for violation detection, for red light violations, or pedestrian crossing identifications, or basically remote monitoring of all this and recording of the incidents, etc. You have several cameras going to be there, okay, and most of these cameras are connected on an edge compute device which will sit in a rack near that intersection itself. I'm experimenting that in Electronic City. One of the intersections are connected using a edge compute. We work along with Intel for that. It's a joint proposition which we are doing today. So to work out how the data can be processed completely at the edge, right, without going to the the cloud. So that is today it is a wired connection. Tomorrow it can be a wireless connection using 5G. All cameras connected over a 5G wireless connectivity to the edge device. So there are several such things can be done. So a city with a digital or IoT overlay is what is the most important aspect, but trillions of connections will be there. No network can support this other than 5G today, right? That's important. Now, how does the city infrastructure connected? So there is all types of infrastructure. It can be buildings, all those buildings will be there. For example, recently I was working with Europe, one of the cities in Europe. They want, actually they have close to about 4,000 buildings, 4,200 buildings to be precise. It consists of schools, it consists of offices, everything. They want to view all these buildings. They want to have a smart building infrastructure to view. Okay, it could be zone wise separations, things like that, but they want to measure certain parameters. What parameters? The water leakage, the energy parameters, maybe using solar or wind augmented energy, how do you use that? So those kind of few parameters they want to measure, okay, including security. They want to see that. Every building they want to see that and connect to a central command control, city command control center, right? So these are things which is happening, and they want to know finally the carbon footprint reduction happening or not. Can we say that according to the UN resolution of 2030, we need to reduce significantly the carbon footprint reduction? This is happening across the globe, in India also. While cities are taking time, but private facilities like manufacturing facilities, like educational institutions, all will have a dashboard in the future which shows that how much carbon footprint reduction happened. Okay, in from last 6 months, how much you are able to do that. Okay, so this is something which is driving all these aspects of it. So city operations are connected to the city infrastructure. Then you have single point of access, integrated service centers for the citizens. Okay, all other external service and city administrations are connected to this. This is how a smart city will work, right? Now, what is the final objective of all this? It is about quality of life. Quality of life, efficiency, sustainability, etc., are the most important aspects which a smart city is looking for. Okay. Now I will stop here. So I don't have any more slides to showcase to you. I can open up for questions and discussions. Thank you. Over to you, Tarun. Hello.
Am I right? Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. That was very informative and wonderful. And really knowing what you all are already working on and the very capabilities of 5G is very exciting. And we have a lot of questions on the chat section, if you can see on your right, actually.
Okay.
Uh,
Let me
so,
just go to the chat box here. Okay. So which one I should answer first?
sir, we have a question from Athar Patawar. He says Wi-Fi is not energy efficient, right? What do you think about it?
Yeah, there are actually problems related energy efficiency in Wi-Fi. 5G. So people talk about it consumes more energy. The research is going on that how to reduce 5G or augment the power supply using other energy sources like solar, etc. So definitely that's a big question actually, which is being is one of the stumbling blocks, I would say, but they will surpass that, and then there will be efficient equipments. This is a baby step what I think industry has taken, but during the next couple of years you would see that energy efficient equipments are there available.
Yeah. So we have a question from Shivam. He says, "What is the scale of use of IoT devices in contemporary times?"
Pardon, can you please read that again?
He asks, "What is the scale of use of IoT devices in contemporary times?"
Scare.
Scale.
Skill.
Yeah.
Skill
He
is
says
it
scale
skill?
like quantity. Scale.
Scare. Okay.
Scale,
So
sir.
scare. Yeah, there is a scare of frequency, right? So everybody says that I want connectivity, I want excellent services, I want everything, but I'm scared about the frequency. Right? This is one major thing. But you should understand that frequency is there everywhere, and most of these organizations like Try is or DOT has got certain specifications. So none of the service providers can go beyond it. So we assume that all of these technically qualified ones. Okay, and there might be, definitely I'm saying that it is frequencies are dangerous for humans and animals, etc. But some of these are in the safer zones, so there should not be any problem. So you can check many reports. There are reports also against it. So every as we go forward, you will find more and more reports which is coming against these things also. But it is part of their journey, what we have to absorb and then go ahead.
Yes, sir. Actually, that is really, we got some extra knowledge here. But Shivan's question was, what is the scale, like quantity kind of scale?
Scale, okay.
Yeah,
Is it scale? Okay, okay,
yeah.
right. Oh, the quantity scale. IoT is going to be a big thing. Okay, so I have shown some of those cases. They're very small home automation to a very large smart city space. The scale of growth is going to be very huge. Only problem what we are facing today is about communication infrastructure. That's why I said 5G will be a catalyst for it. When you have 5G implemented, you don't have anything to stop communicating, right? Anything. Your pet also can communicate. For example, if you have a cat or a dog, it can actually communicate to you over your IoT. That's what they say. So you have a farm, large farm where probably cows are there. All the data from the cow can be communicated. Today it's happening in large dairy farms. They
Ah,
monitor the cows, the health status of the cows, etc. Right? So there is a lot of scalability possible, and 5G will enable that scalability.
yeah. Can I have the next question? Sir, so Riddhi asks, sir, can you give us an idea about the implementation of a smart street lighting system?
Yes, Riddhi. So a smart street lighting system is in a city is very important, as I said earlier, that it is about energy savings. That's one of the major aspects of it. Today, most of the cities are changing from sodium vapor to LED lamps so that they can save 80 to 85% of energy. Minimum 70% they say, depending on usage of LED. But IoT can bring in the extra another 15% to it. Okay, by uh, using a probably a dimming facility. If, for example, you start at 6 in the evening and switch off at 6 in the morning. Okay, a half an hour difference will make a lot of impact, right? The cities, as you know, some of the cities will have evenings which will be probably start. It will become dark only after 7 o'clock, but you are switching on the lights at 6 o'clock itself. So that time-based thing can change automatically to a light sensed based things, right? That will make a lot of impact in energy savings. So smart street lighting is all about understanding the environment, switching on or reducing the light density, and then accordingly save energy. The ultimate aim is to save energy.
Yes. We have another question from Athal. He says, sir, how does 5G compare to 4G in terms of energy efficiency?
Yeah, that is a big question. So earlier, as I said earlier, 5G is supposed to guzzle a lot of energy, okay, because the equipment which is there currently needs a lot of energy. Okay, so that is
Hmm.
something which researchers are working on to manufacture equipments which will consume less energy. So it is not that generally it consumes. Okay, when it is applied in certain applications, generally it consumes so much of energy. But in general, it is like 4G equipments only. So today 4G LTE, what they call it as, it's the same as backend is same as 5G. Okay, so whoever is implementing 4G LTE today will migrate to 5G ultimately. Today in India, you can say Airtel, Jio, all these people are ready. DOT is running a program. I'm not sure whether you people have heard about a hackathon which was recently launched, and there was 100 teams were selected actually from different sources. So each one selected one got 1 lakh as prize money, right? Directly. There is a big initiative taken in India also. So the
Oh,
final selected one will close to about 25 lakhs. They will get prize money. So there is a big impact which everybody is trying to bring in before the 5G is being launched. So power factor is a big thing, and I'm sure that going forward, I think they will break that problem.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
we have a question from Priyanshi. She asks, how will 5G change the wireline architecture that currently supports 4G mobile backhaul?
Oh, that is a big question. So 5G, as I said, it is not going to change much, but actually it demands more wires. Okay. So 4G today has got towers. You might have seen rooftop towers or grounds up towers or things like that. 5G, if you want to implement the full scale of 5G, it needs more towers, right? That is a problem. That is where all these towers, some of them can be connected on a wire point to multi-point kind of a connectivity, but majority of them require a wired connection, right?
Hmm.
That means
Yeah.
you might have to roll out more OFC cables. That is one thing which you cannot avoid, because backbone, I said, it has to be on OFC. Fiber connectivity will never die. That will only increase in the coming days.
Oh, yeah, right. We have a question from Avinash. He says, Sir, can you please give us some examples where the two most trending technologies, AI and IoT, complement each other?
Yeah, AI is in the family range of IoT. So if IoT is not there, AI also will not have much significance. Okay, unit inferencing, right? AI is about ultimately how do you inference things from the data which is collected. So IoT is actually the backbone for AI to work. Right? For example, intelligence. I was talking about intelligence in an intersection, or we call it as intelligence, camera visual intelligence based intersections, where AI is running at the edge, right? So I have your red light violation detections, or the seat belt violation detections, or accident detections, different types. For example, I have a mic installed in the junction, and a small sound which is coming from an accident can be taken as input, and the camera can actually direct towards it and find out what happened there. Because when you have such a large city with so many cameras, you cannot display all the junctions
Hmm.
simultaneously in a screen. You have close to about 500 intersections in a city, an average. It will be much more than that. You will only focus on certain intersections which is of importance, or which gives an alert, right? So then when that happens, this most of these edge that is running will actually be triggered by the IoT devices. So analytics cannot happen with IoT interventions. Right? That's what the relationship between IoT and AI.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Prasun asks, how will low code or no code solutions affect IoT as a whole?
So it is very important that when you deploy an IoT solution, right? So you need to have at least 80% ready, because people don't have time to deploy such a complex solution. So then they may not have enough time. They don't have the pace that you take almost your sweet time, like 6 months program. They will not allow. So they want actually ready solutions. Fine tuning you do, or certain codings you do, could be the visualization layer, because it will differ from the organization to organization. So a low code solution or a no code solution is preferred in most of these deployments, and they want ready deployments. 80% should be ready, and 20% you can do for this thing. So it is very important that IoT applications is a very low code or no code kind of a application which should be suggested.
Hmm. Tanmay asks, what do you think about the new IoT vulnerabilities? Like, it allows attackers to exploit. What can be done to avoid such situations?
One thing I actually avoided in this presentation was security. Okay. So it was there in all the slides I have shown, but I did not mention end-to-end security in any IoT driven projects. End-to-end security, starting from the lowest device, the sensor device, to the highest one. Today we don't have any problem with the cyber security. There are a lot of tools available, but endpoint security is very less today. There are so many now security people who have come up with sensor level security, so that you have end-to-end security. Nobody can hack. For example, you have a smart street light. If somebody hacks into it, they can switch on the street light during daytime also, right? So you need to have that security in place. So from the lowermost device, the sensor attached to any device, from there to the highest level, you need to have securities in place. So that is very important aspect of it.
Cicera asks, she says she's grateful for taking such a workshop and she learned a lot. And she says, can you guide her how to learn from scratch, like start a complete IoT journey?
Today it is so easy, Cecil. You have so many tutorials available. Okay, Google. If you Google out anything about IoT, you can have from learners stage. You can have several sessions available. You can, if you are all part of IEEE conducts some of those sessions are there. Certificate courses are there in IEEE. I'm a member of IEEE, and most of you might be a member of IEEE also. So if you have IEEE chapter in your organization, then you can actually conduct some of things, or Coursera or any such these things are available. Courses are available. Okay, so several courses are available. Start with understanding sensors. Okay, the layers I have shown. Okay, forget about the physical layer. What sensors, communication, how the sensors communicate to the application. Okay, through a communication media like a wireless or wired media. This is the starting point of it. Then you come to the application level. Right? This is how you should actually know. If you know the foundation, it is very easy to build on top of it.
Hmm.
Okay.
We have another question from Riddhi. She says, Skylo has introduced the fishers report. It allows fishers and boat owners to sell their catch after bringing the fish onto the boat before they reach the shore. How are they going to implement this?
Yeah, there are a lot of areas being discussed by many companies. How to connect fishermen. Okay, the most important aspect of that today being implemented by ISRO and the other facilitators like DOT is that how fishermen can be safe in the sea. This is the most important part. Then comes actually the selling part of it. Okay, it is very difficult because you need to have radio communication in each and every boat. So you know that in the Indian peninsula has got so much of area where fishermen go from eastern side to western side, Bay of Bengal to Arabian Sea. Okay, the entire thing is covered, but there are lakhs of fishermen who go to sea every day. Safety is the first things, and they are trying to implement that with several technologies. So that is first. Once that is established, technology is established, then actually can the business happen. Communication is a very important aspect. It is difficult when they go to the sea, that land communication is very difficult. There are some people who have come out with low frequency communication. So recently I heard one of the companies showcasing to DOT that from the shore they can go up to 15 kilometers in deep into the sea. They're saying that 15 20 kilometers communication can be established. Okay, point to multi-point communication. But otherwise it is satellite only is a way. And low earth orbit satellites, which is probably the future, one of the satellite communication in the future, can help a lot in this. So communication is the only thing which is important for such a thing. So if they say that a boat has got a good capture, they can sell it. Only thing which stops you is communication. Live or real-time communication from that is very important for doing that aspect. And I'm sure that in the coming years, you will have good communication facility which they can utilize.
So we have a
Yes, it
question from
requires.
Monica. Uh, yeah.
So Manika, so it is requiring the 5G require millions of small cells for the applications which is required. So not everywhere. Millions of small cells are required depending on the applications. I am 100% sure that in the next 5 to 10 years, when the 5G adoption happens fully, millions of small cells will be there, and many of these small cells will require a backbone of OFC. So that is very important. So that is why I said OFC connectivity is going to increase many fold in a city.
So Kushaj asks, So can LPv6 affect the development of and implementation of Internet of Things?
As we come across millions of devices, you know that IPv4 cannot sustain that. So IPv6 is definitely there. It is now being used and it will be used in the future. Okay, but the deployment depends on how the transition can happen from IPv4 to IPv6. It's also a journey to be defined by the enterprises and their places where it is being deployed. So IPv6 is only way to contain most of these devices which is being rolled out.
Can we have the next question? Sir, how is IoT empowering the modern healthcare industry? Utkarsh has a question.
Utkarsh, healthcare industry is one of the major industry which is going to consume IoT in future. Okay, anything. For example, if you have medical equipments in a hospital, for example, let us say one company called GE is supplying medical equipments to thousands of hospitals, many thousands of hospitals, right? If they want to remotely monitor all these machines today, okay, it is very difficult to do that because they don't have such facility, right? Now, if they want to do it, that health status of a machine, a critical machine, they want to monitor, like some machines which is used in operation theaters, whether there is a problem in that machine, whether it can break down, all that predictive maintenance can happen live, real time through the Internet of Things. Right. This is very important aspect in future of medical industry. That is about equipment. Other than that, remote monitoring of patients is another thing which is happening in a big way. For example, every patient need not actually be there hospitalized. So home nursing is possible today. With the help of IoT, actually a doctor remotely can uh, uh, inquire the health status daily basis, or if required in emergency situation on an hourly basis monitoring also. So these are all things which is going to enhance the medical healthcare industry in a big way.
So I think we'll take a last question from you. Sir, is the TSMC chip shortage affecting 5G and IoT development? Athar again asks here the third
Yeah,
question.
I'm actually not very sure about that. So, Atharva, so we'll have to check with that because I don't dwell into the development of 5G equipments. Okay, we generally tie up with people who have deployment in 5G. I'm not sure about the shortage, whether it can affect or something. So you have to. I'm not probably the right person to answer that.
Yes, sir. I think with that we'll stop all the questions because our curiosity is just grown a lot after the
I
session.
know that there will be thousands like 5G and IoT. There will be millions of
Yeah.
questions in your mind. Okay,
Yes, sir.
maybe this is a
Even,
very short session for answering all that. Uh,
in fact, you can actually see the lot of activity in the chat section on the right.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I can see
So
that. Yeah, the
yes,
enthusiasm I can see that. It's a
the
lovely
very
crowd we have here today. Great to see all of you.
yes, sir. Like very exciting for the future. So I
Yes,
think we will stop there. Thank you so much, sir, for coming, agreeing, and taking such a wonderful session and generating so much curiosity among us. And
thank you so much, Tarun, and
and
good luck to all of you. Okay, who are completing your courses and then coming out into the industry. There is a lot of exciting things in the industry outside your academic world. I'm sure that I would like to give you a message that never stop educating yourself. Okay, whether you come out of your colleges, whether you do higher studies anywhere in the world, okay,
yeah,
the education should continue. So I started my career in way back in 1990 when nothing like this was there. Even computer was very rare. Okay, so I remember that there were a couple of computers in my lab, in my college lab, where we were not allowed to touch also, right? Sometimes it is like the professor or the lecturer will show us from distance. Yeah, this is in air conditioned place. You have a system kept. It's very expensive those days, right? Then even networking was not there. You can't imagine a time when Windows was not there. So I have seen Windows after 5 years after coming out into the industry.
oh,
Like, there was no Windows. There was
right.
no mouse. Can you imagine? Today you have mouse. There was no mouse at all at that time. right? So there was nothing like Windows Office or anything like that. It was just typing like a typewriter kind of a thing. So today it has
Mm.
changed a lot in the last 30 years, but the speed of innovation is happening in a lightning space, and you will see the last 30 years what development happened, much but more the
Correct.
pace, yeah, most intense pace will happen in the next 30 years. Okay,
Mm.
so when you are starting your careers in the next 5 years, you will see a lot of innovations which is going to happen. That's why I said never stop learning. Your connection, your
Yes, sir.
umbilical cord, your academic, this thing should be always there in that.
Yes, sir. So I think then we'll also thank the all the excited audience, and all the best for taking all this forward, and bring up what the development sir is told. We'll bring it 30 years. So I think on that note, let's end the session and the wonderful
Thank,
session.
thank you so much,
Thank you
Tarun,
so much, sir.
for
Yeah,
taking this, and thank you all the participants. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.